A delicate hush hung over the grand convergence hall, as if the air itself had been warned to behave. Marble floors pulsed with embedded starlight. Every inch of the dome shimmered with artificial auroras, crafted specifically to impress species who'd never seen the real thing. Above, banners bearing 50 empires rustled in controlled atmospheric flows. The galaxy had gathered not to fight, but to smile while plotting how to avoid the next war. The humans entered last. Naomi Carter walked like she belonged in every room she'd ever entered and every funeral she'd ever caused. Her boots didn't echo, they whispered. Her badge read Earth Observer Only, but her eyes read every angle of the hall like she was casing it for a hit. Dressed in a navy blue suit with a sharp collar and no visible weapon, she radiated a disarming friendliness that made the other diplomats lean in. She smiled with her whole mouth, but her eyes never joined the performance. Behind her, Mikhail Dragunov did not smile at all. Where Naomi was warmth and wit, Mikhail was steel-wrapped in silence. He stood half a step behind her, arms at his sides, eyes half-lidded as though everything bored him. He wore a black turtleneck and tailored gray coat, and his long fingers never stopped toying with the ring he wore, plain tungsten, but deadly in his hands. His beard was trimmed with the precision of a sniper's breath. He looked like a man who'd waited years to be let off the leash. They walked to the Earth table, empty until now, and sat down like it was their housewarming. A ripple of unease passed through the hall. The Varaxi War Chancellor clicked his claws against his armor, a slow, deliberate rhythm of disdain. His breath came in thin, white ribbons from his nostrils as he leaned toward his aide. "Is that all the Terrans sent?" he whispered in his guttural tongue. "2 mammals." The aide nodded, careful not to meet Naomi's eyes. Across the table, a Vuntal ambassador oozed across its gravity chair, the gelatinous folds of its body expanding and contracting in slow irritation. "The humans are quaint," it muttered. "Why do they always bring only 2? Naomi heard every word, but her voice remained sugar. "We find that 2's the perfect number," she said cheerfully. 3 becomes a debate. 1 looks lonely, but 2. She leaned forward, her smile soft and syrupy. 2 can be a conversation, or a kill team. The room hushed. The Juthari delegation, tall, silver-skinned psionics, whose minds shimmered like fog glass, tilted their heads. One of them squinted at Naomi, as though trying to read a book too dangerous to open. "Was that a threat?" asked the Great Queen Brood through her translator silk, her mandibles twitching. Naomi blinked, then laughed lightly. "Lord, no. Just a little Earth idiom. We like to keep things spicy." Mikhail's fingers finally stopped. His eyes opened fully. He said nothing, but his gaze lingered on the Varaxi Chancellor for precisely 1 heartbeat too long. The Convergence chairperson, an elderly Talvari with coral tendrils for hair and a voice like wind through bone chimes, rose with a diplomatic cough. "Let us proceed to the matter of contested sector boundaries in the Zalara Drift." A holographic map unfurled midair. Stars blinked and danced like fireflies frozen in time. Lines were drawn, red and blue, jagged and crude. Voices rose. The Varaxi demanded their ancestral hunting rights. The Juthari reminded them that memories alone did not make claims. The Vuntal bloated in indignation. The Graith clicked in agitation. Naomi sipped her coffee, black and unsweetened. Mikhail's eyes flicked toward the ceiling vent, then toward a security guard's twitching hand, then toward the Varaxi aide, whose finger trembled near his coat. His right eyelid twitched once. He leaned toward Naomi. She didn't look at him. "Yeah," she whispered into her cup, "I see it." The aide moved first. A sudden clatter. A flash of metal. The whine of a plasma knife igniting. Naomi sighed, shifted in her seat, and in a single fluid motion, flicked the metal spoon from her coffee into the air. It spun once, gleaming, and embedded itself with surgical precision in the attacker's eye socket. He screamed. Fell. Security surged. Blasters charged. Alien voices shrieked in a dozen dialects. Mikhail stood slowly, palms open. "Remain seated," he said. The room froze. The Great Queen took a trembling step back. "What are they?" Naomi rose, brushing imaginary dust from her lapel. She walked over to the twitching Varaxi on the floor, crouched beside him, and gently removed the knife from his failing grip. "Now, darlin'," she murmured, "you should have known better than to bring a butter knife to a coffee brawl." Blood pooled. Red. Alien. Unremarkable. The Convergence chairperson's tendrils had gone stiff with fear. "Explain yourselves." "We were attacked," Naomi said sweetly, returning to her seat. I responded in proportion. The Varaxi chancellor hissed. "You killed my nephew." Naomi tilted her head. "Did I? Oh no. I just removed a threat." She leaned forward, eyes cool and ancient. "But we can call your family if you'd like. I assume you brought a spare heir." The room drew breath like it was a shared lung, then held it. The Juthari psychic whispered, "This is no ambassador." Mikhail sat again, the ring still on his finger. "No," he said softly. "She's better." Naomi crossed her legs and glanced at the holographic stars. "Can we go back to the map? I was enjoying the part where y'all argued over rocks floating in space like kindergartners in a sandbox." The Convergence chairperson looked around the hall, then slowly nodded. "Resume deliberations." The hologram flickered back on. Voices rose again, but this time more measured. Eyes kept flicking to the Terran table. Naomi folded her hands politely. Mikhail's expression didn't change once. As the debate dragged on, one alien whispered what many were starting to feel. "Why do humans never show fear?" Another replied, "Because they never had to." Hours passed. Deals were bartered. Alliances shifted like sand. But Earth stayed silent, watching, smiling, calculating. At twilight hour, a servant droid brought Naomi another cup of coffee. She accepted it with a nod, then paused. The cup was warm. Too warm. Overcharged by exactly 5 degrees. Someone wanted her distracted. She lifted it, sniffed. Cinnamon. Poison. She set the cup down and stood slowly. Her voice was velvet. "I need a moment of privacy." Mikhail rose beside her. "I'll accompany." They walked out, arm in arm, like diplomats heading to admire the artificial dusk. The doors whispered shut behind them. Inside, the assassins were waiting. 5. Armed. Alert. Naomi didn't flinch. "Gentlemen," she said warmly. "So good of you to keep the hallway lively." Mikhail cracked his neck. They moved. 1 minute later, the doors opened again. Naomi returned alone, dusting blood from her collar. The room stopped breathing. Mikhail entered next, silent as moonlight, wiping a smear of red from his blade with the droid's cloth napkin. They resumed their seats. No one asked what had happened. No one dared. Then Naomi leaned back in her chair, lips pursed. Her gaze swept across the sea of terrified faces. "Just for context," she said softly, "Earth didn't come here looking for a fight." She paused. "But if y'all keep mistaking kindness for weakness, well, that's when things get biblical." She smiled again. No sweetness this time. Beside her, Mikhail's ring clicked once against the table. And in that sound, every alien heart heard the tolling of a bell they didn't know they'd been waiting for. In the cold shadow of Saturn's rings, something impossibly old and impossibly quiet stirred. A warship, Earth-class, black as a widow's veil, hovered without fanfare. It bore no symbols, no blinking lights. Just matte plating and an angular silhouette that looked more like a threat than a vessel. The name etched into its hull was small, almost disrespectfully, so front porch. The implication wasn't subtle. Earth didn't go to war. Earth waited for it to walk up the steps first. Inside, the lighting was low. No alarms. No sirens. Just silence and the occasional clink of ceramic. Naomi Carter sat in the captain's quarters, sipping from a chipped white mug that read, "I woke up like this." Her legs were propped up on a crate marked empathic disruptor. "Do not open," her demeanor calm as a Sunday brunch host. A holographic map floated before her, marked with pulsing red indicators. Mikhail stood behind her, hands clasped behind his back, watching the same map. He hadn't spoken in 20 minutes. That was how Naomi knew he was really worried. "They've started circling," she murmured. 3 fleets, he said. Graith, Voraxi, Vuntal. No formal declaration yet. Of course not, Naomi said, tilting her head. Wouldn't want to ruin their little summit. Much better to act civilized while positioning a knife under the table. Mikhail blinked once. Standard alien diplomacy. Naomi's lips twitched. Funny. That's exactly how my grandma used to negotiate bake sales. He didn't smile, but the air between them softened, just for a beat. Then the map blinked again. 3 red orbs blinked out. Gone. Vaporized. Naomi sat forward. That wasn't us. No, Mikhail said. Someone else is firing first. The shift was subtle, but profound. Naomi's boots hit the floor. Her cup clicked against the desk. The jokes didn't stop. Naomi never stopped, but the pause between them stretched longer. Back at the summit, a new energy pulsed like a rising fever. Alien diplomats glanced at Earth's empty chairs with a mix of triumph and apprehension. The news had already spread. The Terran agents had stepped away, and someone had taken the chance to remove them. Clean, strategic, deniable. But no one could explain why there was no footage, or why the hallway's metal walls were warped outward, like something inside had exploded. The Juthari psychic sat stiffly in her seat, rubbing her temples. They're still alive, she whispered. The Voraxi chancellor sneered. Ridiculous. They were outnumbered. They're still alive, she repeated sharper now. And they are calm. Meanwhile, deep in the front porch, Naomi stood in the command bay as a technician. A lanky man named Jones, who chewed mint leaves like gum, pulled up an intercepted comm log from the alien fleets. Voraxi command. Confirm status of human agents. Great swarm link. Status unknown. We've encountered resistance. Minimal casualties. Naomi tilted her head. Minimal? Jones pulled up the casualty report. It wasn't minimal. It wasn't even a report. It was a list of names followed by the same word. Missing. No corpses. No sensor echoes. Just absence. Clean, Mikhail said. Too clean. Naomi stared at the screen. Then she smiled, but this one didn't reach her eyes. They think we're playing poker, she murmured. But we're playing something else. Texas Hold'em, Jones offered, grinning. Naomi shook her head. Hide and seek. Mikhail turned. Are we proceeding? She nodded. It's time to open the toolbox. A low hum passed through the ship. Engines that hadn't run in 20 years cycled up with a predatory purr. The kind of hum that made even veteran captains check their evacuation routes. In orbit, alien fleets scrambled to reposition. They'd thought Earth would posture, delay, beg for negotiation. That was how peace worked in the galaxy, stalling until the bigger stick showed up. They hadn't expected Earth's stick to already be in their ribs. Back at the summit, the Convergence chairperson was speaking. Calm words, procedural statements, a desperate attempt to return to protocol. But every delegate's gaze kept slipping to the Earth table. Still empty. Still ominous. Then the door hissed open. Naomi Carter walked in first, brushing a bit of alien dust from her sleeve. Her hair was slightly out of place, and there was a faint smear of purple on her left boot. Not human blood. Mikhail followed, shirt unbuttoned at the collar, gloves off. There was a shallow cut on his cheek, precise, clean, deliberate. He'd let them draw blood. The room didn't greet them. No one moved. Even the Vuntal ambassador quivered like a half-deflated balloon. Naomi slid into her seat like she'd just returned from the restroom. Apologies for the delay, she said brightly. Bit of turbulence in the corridor. Mikhail sat down and placed a folded handkerchief on the table. A single alien insignia, a Voraxi death mark, rested in its center. The silence became suffocating. Naomi leaned forward, rested her chin on her hand, and looked directly at the Graith envoy. You know what we call this kind of behavior where I'm from? The insectoid diplomat didn't respond. Poking the bear, she said. Now normally, we don't mind a little sass. Keeps things interesting. But see, Earth ain't a bear you poke. Her voice dropped, smooth and slow. We're the kind you feed from across the yard and pray never learns how to open your gate. The Graith envoy twitched. We believed you were bluffing. Mikhail's voice was ice on glass. We're humans. Bluffing is our foreplay. Naomi chuckled. Bless your hearts. The Convergence chairperson rose shakily. Earth, do you deny initiating hostilities? Naomi shrugged. We denied nothing. We responded. You eliminated. Neutralized, Naomi corrected. Precision counts, chair. A tremble in the air. The Juthri psychic stood abruptly. Her voice trembled. You're planning something. Naomi's gaze flicked to her. We're always planning something. A sharp silence. The psychic's hands went to her head. You think in layers. Mask under mask under mask. Even your humor is a weapon. Even your smiles. Naomi offered her one. The Juthri gasped. They are apex predators. They are not diplomats. They are trials. Mikhail looked at Naomi. Too much. She sighed, almost bored. Probably. From her pocket, she pulled a small coin and flipped it. Not for luck. For signal. In Saturn shadow, front porch received it. Elsewhere, across hidden satellites and encrypted relays, Earth's sleeper programs woke up. Drones shifted their orbits. AI algorithms finalized risk reports. And an Earth fleet that officially didn't exist decloaked with the elegance of a guillotine. 10 ships. No names. Just numbers. Efficient. Merciless. The alien fleets saw the emergence. Panic calls flooded their comms. Orders countermanded orders. Shields went up. But it was too late. The front porch opened its comms. Naomi's voice crackled across every channel. This is Earth. Kindly disarm yourselves, step back from the porch, and remember who taught you fire. She didn't shout. She didn't threaten. She invited. Silence returned. On the summit floor, several diplomats fainted. The Varaxi chancellor dropped his chalice. The Juthri psychic wept openly. They never wanted peace, she whispered. They wanted understanding. And when they didn't get it, they brought revelation. Naomi stood slowly. We gave you every chance. But y'all wanted to test the myth. Wanted to know if the monster under the bed had teeth. Mikhail stood beside her. Now you know. The doors opened again. Earth security walked in unarmed, calm, terrifyingly relaxed. Naomi tilted her head. Now, who wants to renegotiate? The final line of the old Earth anthem played in the warship's bridge. Land of the free and the home of the brave. And just beneath it, the whisper of a voice long denied. You really shouldn't have poked the bear. Naomi Carter sat in her cell like a queen visiting a barn. The walls were sleek and dark, humming faintly with containment fields. A strip of light ran across the ceiling, casting soft shadows that danced with each breath she took. 2 insectoid guards flanked the door, great elite, their black carapaces slick with venom-ready oils. They watched her with a hunter's stillness, expecting her to flinch. She didn't. She was humming, low and sweet, like a lullaby that had seen too many battlefields. She tapped her rhythm against her knee with 2 fingers. Not nervous, just waiting, like the last tick of a bomb. Outside the cell, voices rose, distant, panicked, bureaucratic. The summit had collapsed into speculation and strategy. There were whispers of retaliation, warnings about Earth's sudden mobilization, arguments about containment. But no one dared speak Naomi Carter's name too loudly. Names held power. Hers crackled. A Graith soldier entered the room. Higher rank. Sharper edges. You are a prisoner of the Summit Authority, he announced in sharp, clipped basic. Your warship has been blockaded. Your associate is missing. Your diplomatic protections are void. Naomi smiled. That was quick. You will remain here until... Y'all always say that. Remain here. Like I ever planned on staying. The soldier stepped closer, mandibles twitching. This is not Earth. You have no leverage here. Naomi leaned forward, elbows on knees. Her voice dropped into something velvet and lethal. Sweetheart, that's where you're wrong. You're not dealing with leverage. You're dealing with weight. And when Earth leans in, things break. The soldier hesitated. Naomi stood slowly, letting the moment stretch. But I'll play your game. Put me in a box. Poke me with sticks. Try and see what bites. Her smile returned, brighter than ever. Just don't be surprised when you find out what's in the box. Had teeth the whole time. The Graith stepped back. Naomi sat again, humming once more. 3 floors above, Mikhail Dragunov stalked through the underbelly of the station, like a ghost no one believed in, until it was too late. The walls here were unfinished. Pipes bled steam. Maintenance drones hung lifeless, disabled by something with too much precision to be mechanical. He moved without urgency, but never without intent. He held no weapon, just a coin between his fingers. A simple earth penny, scarred and worn. Every time it flicked over his knuckles, a system failed somewhere nearby. Mikhail was methodical, quiet, watching. The summit had revealed enough. The attack had revealed more. But this, Naomi's imprisonment, this was the mistake. They hadn't just underestimated humanity. They'd insulted it. They thought kindness was weakness. That charm was ignorance. That smiles were a sign of submission. They had miscalculated. He reached the sub-level control hub. 2 Varaxi guards stood at the door, tall, armored, armed. Mikhail didn't slow. The first raised a weapon. Identify yourself. Mikhail flipped the coin once into the air. By the time it hit the floor, they were down. No sound. No struggle. Just stillness. Mikhail stepped over them and pressed his hand to the control panel. The lights flickered. Inside her cell, Naomi's humming stopped. She looked up. The lights dimmed once. Then again. She laughed softly. Well, hello. The door slid open with a tired sigh. Mikhail stood there, brushing lint from his shoulder. Took you long enough, she said. He shrugged. Together, they stepped into the corridor. 3 Graith guards blocked their path, hissing threats and charging shock lances. Naomi sighed. I'm in heels, y'all. Have some decency. The guards advanced. Mikhail stepped forward. 3 heartbeats later, they were sprawled across the floor, twitching in silence. He hadn't drawn a weapon. He never did. Naomi adjusted her sleeve. You always this dramatic when you're mad? Yes. They kept walking. By the time the summit chamber realized the humans had escaped, it was too late to contain the panic. Delegates shouted across the floor. Security was dispatched, redirected, overwhelmed. The Juthari psychic curled into herself in a corner, murmuring a phrase over and over. They see everything, even the shadows, especially the shadows. In orbit, the front porch began broadcasting a low-frequency signal. Subtle, steady, and unmistakably Terran. Every locked gate on the station opened. Every surveillance feed glitched. Every weapon not bound to human biosignatures deactivated. And still, Naomi and Mikhail moved without running. They didn't need to rush. Earth had already moved the pieces hours ago. The trap wasn't just sprung. It had always been there. Time for introductions, Naomi said, checking a wristband that didn't display anything readable to alien sensors. Mikhail nodded. Begin. Across the galaxy, 12 hidden Earth ships activated long-dormant beacons. On planets that had laughed at Earth's simplicity, sleeper AIs began transmitting encrypted files. Every alien government received the same package. Footage, audio, data, reports, the truth. Humanity's wars, its adaptability, its refusal to die even when surrounded. They saw footage from the Cinder War, where humans had gone in uninvited and left with the enemy's capital. They saw interrogation logs of captured Terran prisoners, who had smiled through their own torture and asked for coffee. They saw cities rebuilt in weeks, cultures merged in months, enemies forgiven until they weren't. They saw what Earth really was. Not violent, not primitive, just very, very good at pretending. Back on the station, Naomi and Mikhail stepped into the heart of the control core. Engineers scattered like ants from fire. Naomi walked up to the central console and tapped a key. A display unfurled. Galactic maps, communication lines, classified data. Earth already had access. She looked at Mikhail. Want to tell them? He nodded once. She activated the summit-wide broadcast. Good afternoon, y'all, she said, sweet as tea. I'm afraid our little field trip's gone sideways. But I wanted to thank everyone for your hospitality. She smiled, but this one was stripped of pretense. It was cold, proud, inevitable. We tried being neighbors. We really did. But you saw our peace as posturing. You thought we were slow because we smiled. Thought we were weak because we asked nicely. She stepped back. Mikhail took her place. When humans go quiet, he said, his voice like gravel wrapped in silk, it's not because we're scared. It's because we're choosing which part of you to remove first. Delegates began evacuating. Naomi nodded, satisfied. Y'all made a mistake. A big one. And we're not mad, exactly. Just disappointed. Behind her, a console lit up. The front porch was moving. Ships scrambled to intercept. But they never got close. The summit shook as systems rebooted, under Earth's control now. Every door they'd thought was locked for them. Not for Earth. In the chaos, only one species didn't move to flee, the Juthari. Their psychic envoy stepped into the hall, alone. She met Naomi at the core. I want to understand, she said, voice trembling. How you hide it. How you wear masks so well. Naomi reached out, gently touched the side of her head. We don't hide it, sugar. We carry it. Like history. Like grief. Like fire. The psychic blinked. Then what are you? Naomi turned to leave. We're the reason you lock your doors at night. The psychic stood there, shaken but still. And behind Naomi, Mikhail paused just once. Looked over his shoulder. War is art, he said. We just perfected the brushstrokes. They vanished into the corridor. And above them, the front porch deployed something new, unseen, unnamed. A signal. A message. A map. To every world that had ever laughed at Earth's patience, Earth now spoke in silence. We waited. We watched. We warned. Now it's our move. The stars above the summit turned blood red. Not metaphorically, literally. The defense satellites that once spun silent above Vorshkai Station had been co-opted, their spectrum filters altered by Earth's advanced algorithms. Red flooded the skies like an omen no species could misinterpret. The message was elegant in its simplicity. This sky belongs to Earth now. Inside the command decks of half a dozen alien dreadnoughts, chaos reigned. Engineers shouted in fractured dialects. Tactical officers slammed their digits or claws or tendrils into unresponsive consoles. Shields wouldn't raise. Weapons refused to lock. Their finest fleet, 37 ships across 4 species, was paralyzed. Meanwhile, Naomi Carter strolled through the docking ring like it was a Sunday picnic. Her coat fluttered behind her, caught in the recycled breeze of an air filtration unit she'd personally sabotaged an hour ago. Her eyes scanned each corridor and hatched like a woman admiring the decorations before a party. Her fingers twitched once, brushing the sidearm still holstered at her hip. She hadn't drawn it yet. She didn't need to. Mikhail followed at her flank, still silent, still armed with nothing but a titanium ring and a soft, glacial patience. Every few steps he paused, to look up, to tilt his head, to listen. Like a predator waiting for the exact second to strike. They weren't running. They weren't retreating. They were delivering. Back in the summit chamber, the alien envoys were screaming at one another. The Wraith were already calling in reinforcements. The Voraxi were demanding blood. The Vuntao were trying to open diplomatic channels through emergency frequencies, channels that Earth now controlled. Only the Juthari envoy sat in stillness. She knew. She felt it. Naomi's thoughts were rippling through the psychic field like heat through oil. A million thoughts, perfectly layered. Calculations. Contingencies. And beneath it all, a calm, cold fury that only humanity could master. The kind born of restraint pushed too far. The psychic whispered to no one. We summoned fire and asked it to wait. Above, the front porch finally moved. She didn't fire. Not yet. She simply rotated. It was enough. Her hull gleamed black against the red-drenched void, guns still cold but visible. She didn't aim. She reminded. A vessel built not to broadcast power, but to prove it. Designed by Earth's Defense Department and its petty grandmother's committee alike. Equal parts efficient and unforgiving. Inside, the AI known as Miss Mabel, the only war construct ever coded to say bless your heart before targeting a hostile, spun up her weapon systems and cleared her virtual throat. "Ma'am," she chirped into Naomi's earpiece, "we're all set for tea. Shall I lay the table?" Naomi smiled. "Go on then." Mabel's cannon arrays activated. No shots fired. Not yet. Let them sweat. Naomi approached docking bay 17. 2 Varaxi enforcers stood guard, aiming coil rifles as she turned the corner. "Identify," one barked. She flicked her wrist. The EM pulse chip sewn into her glove sent a microburst that fried both rifles in a blink. Their weapons sparked. One of them screamed. The other charged. Naomi stepped forward, not away, and slammed the heel of her boot into the charging Varaxi's kneecap. The crunch echoed like a drumbeat. As he fell, she twisted, grabbed his own blade from his holster, and drove it through his armor with a surgeon's grace. The second tried to run. Mikhail moved. He didn't draw steel, just shifted his weight. The moment the guard passed him, he extended a single leg, calculated, effortless. The Varaxi tripped, struck the floor, and didn't rise. Naomi wiped her hand on the first one's cloak. "Do you think they're learning yet?" "No," Mikhail said. "But the lesson's not over." Inside docking bay 17, dozens of summit attendees were gathering, trying to evacuate. Scientists, commanders, spies, the ones who thought they could negotiate their way out after poking the bear and waking the wolves. Naomi walked in without raising her voice. They stopped. All of them. "Put down your weapons," she said. A Wraith captain stepped forward. "You don't have authority." Naomi pointed at the ceiling. The hull shivered. Outside, 6 more Earth ships uncloaked. They hadn't been there minutes ago. Or maybe they had. It didn't matter. Naomi took another step. "I said, put them down." They obeyed. In the upper atmosphere, ships began detonating. Not from direct hits. Earth didn't waste ammunition on symbols. The explosions were surgical. Command bridges only ejected into hard vacuum. Shields dropped. Systems collapsed. Earth had mapped every weak point before the summit ever began. They hadn't come to observe. They'd come to catalog. The galaxy, in its arrogance, had handed Earth the keys. Now Earth was changing the locks. Naomi and Mikhail moved through the docking ring like spirits of judgment. Those who resisted were disarmed, painlessly, efficiently. Earth didn't want corpses. Earth wanted memory. In the summit chamber, only the Juthari remained. The psychic watched the walls flicker as power drained from the core. She turned to the chairperson. "We must surrender." The Talvari blinked. "They haven't even made demands." "That is the demand," she whispered. "Surrender, or be forgotten." Meanwhile, Naomi stood before the last console, station control. "Final check." Mikhail asked. She pulled a small flash drive from her boot. The casing was an old bullet shell. Vintage .45 ACP. Just a little touch of home. She slid it into the console. Miss Mabel's voice chirped. "Installing firewall override. Tuning violins." Naomi looked to the nearest viewport. Below, the conference hall still burned. She exhaled slowly. "This isn't vengeance," she said. "No," Mikhail agreed. "It's architecture." Miss Mabel's system update flooded the station. Firewalls collapsed. Access rerouted. Suddenly, the Summit Authority's broadcasts, once the proud voice of 20 species, now played Earth folk songs. Johnny Cash, Patsy Cline, old recordings played from long-forgotten front porches. Across the galaxy, delegates and governments received the same feed. Naomi, standing calm in front of the Earth banner. "We didn't come to conquer," she said, "but we will be respected." Another beat. She looked directly into the camera. "If you can't manage that, you're welcome to test our patience again. Just know, it won't be a second summit. It'll be a funeral." Then the feed cut. Every race in the galaxy stared at blank screens. And behind that silence, they heard it, not words, not threats. Warning. On the station, the alien ships were docked, disarmed, their crews kneeling on the floors, heads bowed. Naomi and Mikhail passed them, saying nothing. At the docking port, Earth's rapid response squad arrived. 50 soldiers in black, unarmed. They didn't speak either. They weren't needed for violence, just presence. That was the point. Naomi turned to Mikhail. "We done." He looked around, considered, then nodded. "They'll remember." She exhaled. "Good." As she stepped onto the boarding ramp for front porch, the Juthari psychic arrived, unarmed, alone, trembling. Naomi paused. "You stayed," she said. The psychic nodded. "Not to resist. To learn." Naomi studied her for a long moment. "Why?" The answer was quiet. "Because you broke everything, but did it gently." Naomi's smile returned, faint, sad, proud. "That's Earth for you." She reached into her coat and pulled out a worn paperback. "Of Mice and Men." "Start with this," she said, handing it over. "It explains more than a speech ever could." The Juthari took it like a relic. Mikhail waited. "Time." Naomi nodded. "Let's go home." Front porch sealed its doors. In orbit, the Earth fleet repositioned, never aiming weapons, just showing the geometry of power. They stayed in place just long enough for the galaxy to understand what had happened. Then they turned. Returned to Saturn's shadow. Vanished like ghosts into night. Back on the station, alien crews worked to salvage pride and explain failure. No one dared call it war. It wasn't. It was a lesson that humans had been watching, waiting, and that next time they would knock first.